There's a time of the year right around April, after March Madness, after the dust is settled for the national championship game, no recruiting cycles, all the classes have been signed, no playoff committee, football is in its dead period. Those are the days that I fear. No news to talk about, nothing really to be said, no coaching searches to be had. Those days are not today. This has been one of the craziest weeks I can remember in recent memory. We have the early signing day. It's championship weekend. The playoff committee rankings are highly debated, to say the least, right now. We have huge prospects flipping to schools who you would never believe 10 years ago. We have utter disasters at other blue chip programs. We have it all at this moment in time. So we are very blessed in the world of college football. First things first, I would implore you to please hit that like and hit that subscribe button. There's a ton of stuff coming out daily. Wouldn't want you to miss anything that we are putting out here at Talking Tide. And if you have never watched the show, don't do it right now. Wait, get 15, 20 minutes into the show. Hopefully this show won't be longer than 20, 25 minutes unless I just incoherently ramble. But if you get to the end of it and you say you like it, please do just toy with the idea of hitting that subscribe button. At least hit the like button. I've actually already recorded this podcast one time. My audio got corrupted. So now we're sitting here again trying to get this podcast out. It is Thursday night. It is December the 4th. The early signing day actually ends tomorrow on the 5th. But there's a lot of news already to be had with this cycle. We'll run through it. We'll run through the winners and the losers to open tonight's show. First big winner, USC. They did a good job. They actually signed 35 commits in this early signing day period. They come away with the number one class. Oregon narrowly behind them at number 2. And then to round out our top 10, it's Notre Dame, Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, Tennessee, Texas A&M, and then Miami to round out the top 10. Alabama also did very well. This is obviously an Alabama run show, hence the A on the shirt. We did very well. All the people I was looking to sign have signed, and we'll talk about some of those guys who could potentially be day one impact guys. We'll call it post SEC championship. There's a lot to talk about right now, and that's more speculation than anything, but I do think we will have some real hitters that can be day one impacts like we've seen this year. We've got guys like Lazio Brooks, Michael Carroll, some real talented guys, London Simmons, real talented guys who have been day one impacts here at the Crimson Tide. Dijon Lee is another one. So we've got some real impact freshmen here at the capstone. And look, I think there's a lot of guys in this class that can also be day one impact guys. Another big winner for this recruiting class, LSU. If you didn't know, they actually just signed a new head coach. I know it kind of went under the radar, but they ended up signing Ole Miss's former head coach, Lane Kiffin, and they did very well. They ended up in 12th in this early signing period. Got I believe, the number one recruit out of Louisiana, which is big for them trying to keep hometown talent. I think they got the number 2 wide receiver out of Alabama as well. So they did very well in this signing period. One other winner out of this recruiting cycle is Vanderbilt also. Ended up picking up their highest ever rated recruit in Jared Curtis, a quarterback who flipped from Georgia and is a 5-star. He's the number 3 player, I believe, in this cycle. All these are coming out of 24/7 Sports' website, so your results may vary, but that's the general, just to give you an idea. This is out of 24/7 Sports. Maybe 0-3 has some different stuff, but yeah, Vanderbilt, congratulations to them. That's a big pickup for Clark Lee and his program. I had thought for a time there that Clark Lee might have ended up taking the Penn State job, which we'll get to Penn State, don't worry. I thought he would end up taking the Penn State job because he was losing his quarterback after the season. He's done a really good job at Vanderbilt, made them a legitimate playoff contender. But now he's re-upped. He's got a quarterback who he can lean on for the next 3 or 4 years in Jared Curtis. So congratulations to Clark Lee and the Vanderbilt Commodores. Okay, now we have to get into, we'll call it, I would say, some of the losers. We're going to get into the real big loser of this recruiting cycle. It's not a mystery. It's Penn State. Penn State comes in with the 153rd rated recruiting class in this cycle. They've signed 2 guys. And while they're sitting there doing that, their former head coach, who's now at Virginia Tech, sneaky signed a very good class. They come in at number 30. So I don't know what they're going to do at Penn State. I know I wanted to keep this early section of the show into the recruiting side of things, but how can you not talk about Penn State at this moment in time? When you talk about a blue chip program that has started to fall off a cliff or is teetering on a cliff, I don't know if you guys ever saw Jurassic Park 2. There's a scene in that movie where Jeff Goldblum and I can't remember who the girl is in that movie, where there's the T-Rexes are around. They've knocked the trailer off the cliff and it's teetering. It's teetering right on the edge. And this little bag that the girl, the redheaded lady in that movie, always carries around, falls and ends up hitting the glass at the bottom and ends up helping bring the whole trailer down off a cliff into the ocean. That is the point that Penn State are at right now. They are on the verge of utter disaster. There were rumors, and they're, I would say, wildly untrue, but there were rumors that Penn State might end up not having a 2026 football season. They were the preseason number 2. They went to the college football playoffs last year. They were one of the favorites to go and play for a national championship this season. They were talking about not having a football team next year. Now, again, that's not going to happen, but it shows what happens whenever you, I won't say make a rash decision, but it's whenever you make a decision without a contingency. So, and what do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by that is Penn State AD, Pat Kraft, he decides to fire James Franklin. Okay, well, the people who run Penn State University would then look at him and say, okay, who is next? Do you know? You fired him early in the season, so you would have had your pick of the lot when it comes to coaches who are not employed currently, people who are looking for a new job, guys who are looking to elevate. You have your pick of the lot. You have signed none of them. You have gone through, actually found the list of all the coaches who have turned down the Penn State job. Kalani Sitake just dropped it. BYU actually gave him an extension. Kirk Cignetti also signed an extension. This coaching search has made a lot of coaches a lot of money. Jeff Brom said no. Matt Rule said no. Kalen DeBoer, Pat Fitzgerald, Bob Chesney, Eli Drinkowitz, Clark Lee also signed an extension. Eli Drinkowitz also signed an extension. This is like a money laundering scheme to get other coaches extended instead of finding your own head coach. So where did Penn State go from here? Well, first things first, you have to find a coach. They're toying with the idea of Brian DeBoer, former head coach of the New York Giants, Al Golden, the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator. But out of this list, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There are 9 names on this list that have said no to you. You are on your 10th option. You were playing for a national championship last year, not actually in the national championship game. You were in the playoffs looking to play for a national championship last year. What happened? If Pat Kraft has a job after this debacle, if he does not go out and hire Nick Saban, he should not have a job. It's as simple as that. It is unbelievable how poorly you can run a blue chip college football program. And people will argue and say that Penn State is not a blue chip program. They're wrong. Penn State is one of the biggest traditions. They have massive amounts of money invested into them. They were preseason number 2. They've played for playoffs. They've had chances to win the big games. They haven't done it, but they are a blue chip program. They went 6-6 this season, and everyone said, okay, well, it's a worthy sacrifice. James Franklin, you've been a good servant of this team. Look, I got to roll my sleeves up. I'm getting hot talking about this. You've been a good servant of this football program. We thank you for all that you've done, but it's time to move on. Okay, I have no problem with that. Who is next? If you are an AD, we'll look at Alabama, trying to replace Nick Saban. If you are an AD, if Greg Byrne goes out there and says, you know what, Saban, thank you for your service, enjoy your retirement. It's even different than that because Alabama was forced into that spot. Penn State decided to make the move. And they did not have someone who was willing to sign on the dotted line. That is a failure at an AD spot. That's a failure of a program. That is a failure of there is no team that has gone from the highs of the highs that they did last year to the lows of the lows that they did this year. Other than maybe Florida State a couple years ago, they go undefeated and then they're 2-10 last season. But other than that, I cannot remember a team in recent memory that has fallen this far, and it's of their own doing. Nobody out there, I know they lost their starting quarterback. I get that. And you said, you know what, it's time to rip the Band-Aid off. We're going to get rid of our head coach. This season is a wash, and that's fine. Sometimes you have to rebuild. You have to renew things, and you have to say, all right, we're willing to make this sacrifice to do better in the future. You have made this sacrifice of a season to do worse. You have fired your head coach of a decade at that point. He has gone and signed with another team and already signed a new class that's a top 30 class while you're still sitting there without a head coach. The failure level of this program will be studied. Maybe they come out next season and play good enough ball. They get bowl eligible or something of that nature and they call it a success. But I don't see that happening right now. Unless you go out and you hire a home run hitting hire, which there really are none willing to take the job right now. Unless you do that, I don't see a way out for Penn State, and I don't see a job for Pat Kraft in the future. So I don't know where Penn State go from here. I don't know who they're going to hire at head coach. They have to find a guy. They have to do it soon so they can then go into the portal and try and pick up talent because they are SOL right now. They are in the wind as a football program. All right. Let's get on to what a lot more of you want to talk about, and that's Alabama football. We have two successful programs playing each other this weekend in the SEC championship game. Alabama plays Georgia in the Mercedes-Benz Dome this Saturday. I got a couple of numbers pulled up here. We can talk about them really fast, and then we'll get into what I think the keys to the game will be. So I'll pull them all up here too for you guys. First things first, we have running back room. I know that Alabama's running backs have been better, and the running game has been better more recently, but overall in the season, Alabama has really lacked in the run game. I think that Georgia, the one thing that has been holding them back the past couple of years is their lack of run game. They figured it out. They found a very usable, very sustainable way to run the ball this season. And that's something that Alabama will have to figure out as this game goes on, how to stop the run. Pass catchers, if you would have told me this number was as evenly, it was as equal as it is, 27 versus 25, I would not have believed you come the beginning of the season. I feel like the lack of run game, the slight regression in Ty Simpson's passing game, on top of injuries, the lack of production from Ryan Williams, all that stuff, I feel like has set Alabama back quite a bit. I think when you look at that talent room for wide receiver, I think that Alabama more than clears Georgia, but the lack of production does say a little bit there. Offensive line, Bama takes the edge in this one as well, but I think that we've seen, again, a little bit of a regression. Here's the thing. The offensive line has done a much better job than what we believe they would have done after the Florida State game. Everybody has, and there were still a lot of talking points with this offensive line. There's a lot of pieces moving around. Injuries, we saw Geno Vandermark start at center a couple of times for the Crimson Tide against Auburn. So there are injuries on both sides of this game as well. We're going to talk about that. I think that the offensive line has done a good enough job for Alabama, but this weekend they're going to have to do better than good enough. Georgia did not get a single sack in the first game earlier this year. I think that Georgia is going to have to start creating havoc in the backfield, not allowing Ty clean pockets, not giving him time to make reads, not giving those receivers time to get down the field. I feel like that's where Georgia can really create havoc for Bama in this game. And when we talk about that, we talk about defensive line. The Georgia defensive line was not very good earlier this year, or Alabama's offensive line made them look not very good. That's one place they're going to have to improve. And I think that they've done a much better job in the latter part of this season doing that. I think they've created a lot of havoc as the year has gone on. We talk about linebackers. Both teams have very strong linebacker core. And again, there are injuries on both sides. We'll talk about that. Secondary. This is where Bama takes a real edge for me. I think that secondary of Alabama is second to none in the country. They do a great job of covering downfield. They do a good job of keeping elite wide receivers at bay. They turn the ball over. They create a lot of coverage sacks. They do a good job of keeping men down the field covered and forcing quarterbacks to scramble or get outside the pocket, stuff like that. So I think the secondary takes a real edge for Bama this year. And on top of that, I think that Bama has a better pure passer in Ty Simpson that could try and take advantage of this Georgia secondary if that offensive line gives him the time to do so. We'll talk about quarterback comparison as well. Ty Simpson, Gunnar Stockton. I think if you look at this chart 6 weeks ago, Ty Simpson more than clears Gunnar Stockton, but we've seen a little bit of this progression-regression thing. I thought that Gunnar Stockton was a very mediocre quarterback coming into the year. He didn't play fantastic in the first couple of weeks, but he's really progressed as a quarterback. They found things that help him work in the passing game. And I think the opposite is true for Ty. I think that he's a legitimate Heisman contender earlier this year. But I feel like some of the play calling, I feel like some of the offensive line injuries, I feel like Ty himself has regressed a little bit. The deep ball's not there. We're missing some passes, making some poor decisions than we would have earlier in the year. So I think it is a regression thing. I think that Ty will have to play a better game than he did against Auburn to win this ball game. And I think for Gunnar Stockton, it's avoiding mistakes. He threw a couple of interceptions against Georgia Tech. If Alabama goes plus in the turnover margin in this game, I think they can win it. But if Georgia end up keeping the ball, keeping it clean, winning time of possession, stuff like that, it's going to be a much harder ask for the Crimson Tide. And then we just look at their overall team grades. So overall, these guys are neck and neck, 9 and 10. Offensive rank 24 to 18. Defensive rank, I think Bama's defense clears Georgia by just a hair, mainly because of that secondary. I think that Georgia's secondary is not as seasoned and as elite as Alabama's is, but I think their defensive line can create a lot of havoc and create a lot of problems for Ty Simpson and this offense. On top of that, again, both teams riddled with injuries. Going down this injury report, we can make a full 11. We could field a whole team with this injury report from both sides. So Cam Howard out, Latham out. Oh, this is for Bama. Sorry. Cam Howard out, Latham out, Drake Kirkpatrick suspended. LT Overton newly registered as out. He's apparently sick. He has an illness. Kevin Riley out, Waldrop out, Beeman out, Jam Miller questionable. We saw him get rolled up on against Auburn. He had a lot of success against Auburn. Hopefully he will be fit to play this game. Cam Dewberry, one of those offensive line pieces, questionable. Josh Cuevas, a huge weapon for the Crimson Tide, also questionable. And then Danny Lewis, questionable also. He's been battling injuries all season, so I don't expect him to play. For Georgia, Colby Young out in this game. Ethan Barber out. Bo Walker out. Kyron Jones out. Jordan Hall out. That's a couple pieces on that defensive line. And then Drew Bobo, their center, also out for this game, which could create a little bit of a problem. I think the Bama does a good job of drawing up blitzes and clever packages to stress offensive lines. If you do that when Georgia doesn't have their center, it can make it a lot more difficult for them. So we'll see how Georgia handles that. You can talk about numbers all day in this game. What I think this game comes down to, and what it has come down to in the past, it's a game of moments. It's a game of, can one person step out of the crowd and make themselves the center of this game? For Alabama, can Ryan Williams come out and say, you know what, I haven't had the production this past couple of weeks. Now's the time to go out there and do it. Isaiah Horton, we saw him do it against Auburn. Jeremy Bernard, Latsier Brooks. Ryan Williams did it last season. Is there a player that's going to step out and do that for Alabama? Is there a player that's going to step out and do it for Georgia? Is Gunnar Stockton going to go out there and have a record-breaking day? He threw for like 120 yards against the Tide the first time around. Can he go out there and be the quarterback that Georgia has needed in the past to try and win a national championship game? Or will that Bama secondary eat him up and take a couple of picks? Will that Georgia defensive line create havoc in the backfield and force Tide to play a bad football game? That's what it's going to come down to. It's going to come down to that game of inches, that chess match, the matchups out there. It's going to come down to one or two small moments. This is a game that has game-winning field goal, game-winning interception, overtime written all over it. So It's going to be an entertaining game. We're going to be there. We're heading out there tomorrow night, being Friday night before the game. So I'm excited. Look, the SEC championship game is my favorite game all year. I love going to it. It still holds a ton of meaning to me and anybody who grew up in the BCS era. I love it. My favorite game of the year, and a great venue in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. So I'm excited. I think it's going to be a great football game. I think that both of these teams, we are playing for a bye in this year's playoff. I think that whoever wins this game if Georgia wins it, they will stay at 3. If Bama wins it, we will jump to 4. That's what I think is at stake here. I don't see either team really being dropped out of the playoffs should they lose. And apparently somebody in this game will lose. So if Bama loses, I don't think they're out of the playoffs. If we win, then I think we jump into that number 4 spot. We're playing for a bye in the playoff, is what I believe. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be exciting. I hope to see you guys there. I think if Bama does a good job protecting the football, protecting Ty, winning time of possession, we can win this game. If that secondary goes out there and creates havoc against Gunnar Stockton, we find enough sacks in the game, we create 1 or 2 turnovers, I think we win this football game. If Georgia go out there and they're able to methodically pick us apart, run game, pass game, nickel and dime kind of stuff, and then their defense goes out and creates havoc with our offensive line, I think we will struggle. So that's what I think this game comes down to. I'm excited to see it play out. I hope Ty and this team can return to form. Hopefully we can go out there and we can build a little bit more of a run game. We've done a good job of doing that the past couple of weeks, but this game ain't played on paper. It's played on the field in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Atlanta. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I tried to keep this podcast not super long and rambly. This is the second time I've done it. I actually like this podcast. I thought this one was better than the last one. So maybe it's a blessing in disguise. I appreciate you guys. If you did enjoy, please do hit that like, hit that subscribe button. I appreciate all of y'all. Hope y'all have a great conference championship weekend, and Roll Tide.